hate crimes is a phrase that comes up an awful lot when it comes to the trans debate, doesn't it? Even saying that trans women are not women and trans men are not men and women don't have penises can get you accused of a hate crime. It gets you official Ofcom complaints if you say it on the radio or the telly. It gets you booted off Twitter. Well, people like JK Rowling have faced an awful lot of threats like that and indeed abuse for speaking out on these issues, never once uttering anything anti-trans, but often just pro-women's safety and women's rights and just pro, I don't know, biological fact. Well, she has faced a growing abuse and attacks on her. Yesterday, though, she hit back at trans TV presenter India Willoughby. I've never seen a show she's actually presented, I don't know about you, who has suggested that there should be a court action by the trans children's charity and campaign group Mermaids against JK Rowling. JK Rowling tweeted this saying, well, I'd be the first to sign the petition to call for that court action and would happily go to court. Let's talk about this with Kellie-Jay Keen, a women's rights campaigner. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Always good to talk to you, Kellie-Jay. Now, you've been known far more in the earlier days of this as Posy Parker, of course. You've been speaking out on this, and I have to say you're an absolute heroine of mine for your willingness to sort of just, well, frankly, take any of the abuse you get on this one and standing firm on women's rights. And, of course, the woman who brought the apparently completely controversial legal and dictionary definition of women as an adult human female and have made that apparently something that was controversial. Who knew? It's fascinating. India Willoughby sent me huge amounts of abuse over the years, whilst also blocking me simultaneously on Twitter. Has been an interesting character on this. The idea that she thinks that Mermaids, the trans children's charity and group, should be suing JK Rowling. For a start, it's quite laughable, isn't it, given what Mermaids has been up to lately?
I think it's quite a gift, isn't it? And isn't JK Rowling just the hero that we all need?
Yep.
Just wonderful. I mean, most of us parents thank JK Rowling for helping our children read and get interested in books. And now she's defending women's rights. And someone like India Willoughby, who I agree, I can't remember anything that they've presented, has decided to target JK Rowling. I think it might be a case of the dog that caught the car, which...
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's going to be far more than they bargained for.
Well, I mean, JK Rowling wrote a Twitter thread the other day talking about the Mermaids group and how their sort of unprecedented influence that they have over public policy, government policy, certain corporations and the like. And she pointed out that there are some big question marks about this charity. And Mermaids, like Stonewall, a charity that used to look after gay rights, it seems to almost be entirely about trans rights now. And a lot of gay people have left that organisation as a result, they're pushing a trans ideology, I think, as you or I would put that. They would certainly say they're simply a trans charity helping the families of children who want to transition. But JK Rowling was pointing out just some simple facts that the charity has a trustee who's just now quit over revelations that he spoke at an academic conference hosted by an organisation that promotes services to paedophiles. The trustee, Dr. Jacob Breslow, presented research at an event in Baltimore in 2011 which appeared to criticise societal understanding of paedophiles, while the charity recently came under fire amid accusations of giving chest-flattening devices to young girls against their parents' wishes that can actually cause injury and damage their bodies. JK Rowling said the charity had achieved unprecedented influence in the UK with the help, she says, of certain corporations and celebrities who boosted them, despite, she says, these red flags. Now, it's difficult at this time in the morning to go over what Dr. Jacob Breslow, this trustee, had said, but he was basically justifying what you and I, let's not go into the details, please, for legal reasons, but you and I would regard as, let's go with highly questionable sexual behaviour between adults in the presence of children.
Yeah, I think that's about as far as we could go, isn't it? And everybody else can use their imaginations and look at Twitter to find what he's actually done. But the safeguarding, I think once safeguarding is not the central kind of focus of any children's related charity, I think it's a quick road to hell. And And Mermaids aren't the only charity that have skirted a little bit close to that particular wind. The NSPCC has also promoted some pretty questionable ideas and theories to children. I think we really now need the government to take a very, very firm stance on what children's charities are allowed to say to children, to advise children what ideologies they're allowed to push to children. And in this particular instance, isn't it? It's just unfathomable that somebody with those views, there was no due diligence to find out what this man actually thought about these particular issues, and he's on the board of trustees.
Indeed.
I think, gross.
Well, I mean, something this Twitter thread JK Rowling wrote was this is a charity that's achieved unprecedented influence in the UK. They couldn't have achieved it without the money and the public support of certain corporations and celebrities who eagerly boosted them, even though the red flags have been there for years. Mermaids' fingers were all over the Tavistock gender identity clinic debacle, she said. They've been allowed into classrooms, trained police, had unprecedented influence over health policy, even though, by their own admission, we had a recent court case, they aren't a medical charity. Now, this is a concern, isn't it, that this charity... I've interviewed Susie Green, the head of Mermaids, in the past, in very sympathetic ways. She's got a trans child herself, and I thought it was a really interesting cause, and she was doing good work. But more and more it's emerged, this is sort of a trans activism rather than about the needs of and the safety of children.
Yeah, I mean, my first... interaction with Susie Green was via the police when I was hauled in for questioning the charity back in 2018. So her and I have some indirect relationship. But I just, look, way back, she took her son to Thailand and he had so-called sex reassignment surgery at 16. I think, I feel for the woman. I think we'd all do whatever we thought was best for our child. I happen to not think that is the best for any child. And I think if that is the foundation on which you build the rest of your charity, it's got to be... It's just got to be called into question. And
we should be allowed to question it without being accused of transphobia or hate crimes. I have to say, I would love to see that court case. I would be in court every single day cheering JK Rowling on. Really good to talk to you, Kellie-Jay Keen. Let's talk about it for longer next time. Women's Rights Campaigner. 9:44 is the time. This is Talk Breakfast.